Welcome everyone to today's class on the Taitareeya. Thank you again very, very much, Binduji. I often think how you're in a very unique position to the rest of us, to have the responsibility to take the time to prepare and to bring us the teaching, which I think could almost be taken for granted and shouldn't be. And that you've chosen to do this. And then like you're checking now, it's really clear your deep concern for us. And the other day, Prasad made a point to mention how touched he was that you, even though you couldn't make the one class that you want, the question and answer, you wanted that to still happen. So thank you for that. Thank you, Prakash, for supporting that. Makes a big difference that you're here with us. As usual, the mantras that Binduji has created are up above, and they give us also a point of focus that we don't want to forget, like what Prakash said, different language in the Upanishad and so forth. But those mantras to really come back to, these are the words that were passed to us to remember the deeper and longer teachings that we receive. And then, of course, there's Shankara's commentary in English for this section of the Upanishad in the chat, starting on page 301. Replays available here, and then also on Binduji's YouTube channel. I think probably everyone here was here for the Nasadiya, but that's on YouTube also, and really, it was very beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Binduji.
Thank you, Atmisha. Thank you, Prakash. And welcome all. Thank you each and everyone for being there in the audience, without which this class would not have made any sense to all of us. If you all remember, you will understand the first lecture of Taitareeya, which I did, was with the specific intent to direct all of you towards the difference between literal meaning and the intended meaning, or Tadastha Lakshana and Surupa Lakshana. This is the portion which is now coming handy for applying that knowledge. So if after listening to today's class, if you are able to understand that, by revisiting the first lecture again, it will make you crystal clear as to what is the purpose between the first lecture and this lecture, and how you can make use of that knowledge for your own benefit. The benefit is in feeling the knowledge rather than knowing it in the mind. So that is why the Swarupa Lakshana is more important than the Tadastha Lakshana, or the literal meaning has limitations, and what is the intended meaning is important to all of us. So with that, I am starting today's session. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtiveda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Taitareeya Upanishad Brahmananda Valli Shanti Mantram. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pratamanuvak. Om Brahma Vidapnoti Param Tadeshabhyukta Satyam Jnanamanandam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman Sosnude Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschiteti Tasmad va ye tasmad atmana akashas sambhudaha akashad vayuhu vayoragnihi agneerapaha adhyah prithvi prithivya aushadayaha aushadebhyo nam annat purushaha sava yesha purushonnarasamaya तस्येदमेव शिरः अयम् दक्षिणः पक्षः अयमुत्तरः पक्षः अयमात्मा इदम् पुच्छम् प्रतिष्ठा तदप्येष श्लोको भवति. The opponent was asking about jnanam, nyapti. If it is Brahma, tatravi, even in that case, there is anityatvam and paratantriyam. That is ephemerality and dependency. Because jnanam, nyapti, is avabodha. The jna dhatu is avabodha, means bodha or anubhava. What does it mean? That we all having anubhava, experiences. Anubhava means experience. This anubhava is changing in nature, and whatever is changing is not satyam, and that is anityam. And it is not jnanam in the sense that the word nyapti is knowledge. Now the word knowledge has no relevance unless it has a dependency on something like the subject, object, instrument, etc., etc. That is karakapekshvatvat. Dhatvartanam karakapekshvatvat. Jnanam, the word cha dhatvartah. If that is also a word which is verbal root, which has got an activity, and no activity is free from the subject, object, instrument, etc., etc. All those karakas. Karakas means instruments in deploying the activity. Ato asya anityam paratantrimta. So this is what we was done in the last class, and we also saw the answer. The answer was Swarupa avyatirekena karyatva upacharat. If there is a change in the Swarupa, or if there is a deviation in the nature of Brahma or nature of knowledge, karyatva upacharat. If you are seeing is that it is only an upachara, means a concession or a sort of a leniency done for karyatva, for the effect of knowledge. Karya means effect, cause and effect. So if the knowledge is the nature of Brahman, the knowledge what we are talking about is a concession of that knowledge when deployed through our sense organs. And this has explained in the last class that Atmanam Surupam Jnati. This Atma or Brahma, that nature of that or the reality of that is Jnapti, means awareness, consciousness, knowledge, or pure nature of that. Na tataho vyajirichyate. In the knowledge, it can never be, or can we bring in any sort of vyabhichara, means separation. That is not separated. Therefore, Nitya Eva. That is, it is not Anitya, it is Nitya. Because what is being explained as Anitya is the one which has a beginning and end. But if it is a Swarupa, it can never be separated from the Vastu, the Brahman or Atman. So, तथापि बुद्धेः उपाधिलक्षणया चक्षुरादिद्वारै विषयाकारेण परिमाण्य. So, due to the dependency of the upadhi means instrument, in which it is being utilized, the knowledge is now being utilized by the intellect or the mind. There, in conjunction with the sense organs, Vishayakara, in the form of object, understanding of the object, Vritti Rupa, that is Avabhasa, Shabdadi Akara, Shabdam, Sparsham, Rasam, Rupam, Gandham, all those 5 sense organs have got thoughts. They are in the form of name and form, and that name and form is the knowledge what we mistake or misunderstand as the knowledge of our nature or our Brahman or the Brahman. No. Te Atma Vijnanasya Vishayabhuda Utpadyamana Eva Atma Vijnanena Vyapta Utpadyante. This is happening because the ever-shining knowledge or the nature of the knowledge which is enlightening in nature, when it is Vishayabhuda, when it is being objectified through Utpadyamana, by creation of the objects in the different due to the sense organs, bringing the knowledge of the sense organ or the information of the sense objects. Vyapta Utpadyate. It is spreading the object and cognizing the object, either in the form of sound or light or touch or smell, etc. Tasmad Atma Vijnana Avabhasaschate. Therefore, they are not the Swarupa nature, but they are the Vritti Rupa stage, or that is why called Avabhasa. Avabhasa means reflection or separated from the original one. Avabhasate. Like the sunlight reflected on a reflecting media can also do the job of the sunlight. In a place where there is no direct sunlight falling, it can be directed that place to get the light of the sunlight. But it will depend upon the quality and the nature of the reflecting medium. The sunlight will undergo through a change. So they same way, the Atma knowledge, which cannot be separated from Atma, is now being used by the reflecting medium of the mind, and through the sense organs, we are feeling that we are having the knowledge in the mind. But they are all Vritti Rupa, or in the form of thoughts in name and form. Vijnana Shabda Vachyacha Dhatvartha Buddha. But if you look at the Vijnana Shabda, or the Jnana Shabda Vachyacha, the word knowledge which is being referred in the mind or the intellect, Dhatvartha Buddha, that is literal meaning, because the concession which is being given to the word, same word, instead of knowing the original nature of the word Jnapti, it is now being used as Jnanam, Vijnanam, or Prajnanam, etc. All those things are Dhatvartha Buddha. It is indicating, or the literal meaning of the word, not indicating the nature of the knowledge itself, but their application in nature. The application should not be conceived as that of the original also. It is just like the sunlight, when it is reflected into a dark area, we get this light there. But that, even though it is sunlight, it is not direct sunlight. It is not the sun and the light from the sun, which cannot be separated. There is no way in which the sunlight and the sun can be two independent things. When the sun is not there, the sunlight cannot be there. So, or else the heat and the light, and the heat and the fire. The fire is there, the heat is there, and that cannot be separated out. That is how the Swarupa should be understood. It is the nature of an object. The Vastu is Atma or Brahman, or the object is Atma or Brahman, and the nature of that is Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam. And that cannot be separated or cannot be taken out from its context or in its nature, Swarupa Avastha. But what we are getting the reflected nature of that in the mind and therefore in the objects are pratiti. Pratiti means appearance. Appearance of the same knowledge reflected through the upadhi in mind. Vrikriya rupa iti avivegibi parikalpade. That is a parikalpana or a imagination by the aviveki or those who are not doing proper investigation or the enquiry into the nature of knowledge, but undertaking the nature of knowledge, what is being experienced, all the experiences, including knowing, feeling, thinking, touching, feeling, all those things as knowledge in its impurity. But they are not the knowledge in their purity, they are Datvartaha, means they are the dependency and they are anitya. Therefore, when we are saying that Brahma is Swarupam Jnapti or Atma Swarupam Jnapti, we are not talking about the knowledge that is happening in our mind or intellect. We are talking about the very nature or very Swarupa of Atma or Brahman. Now, how does this one Atma or Brahman Swarupa to be known? That is where today's class we are going to start. Yattu Brahmano Vijnanam Tad Savitri Prakashavat Agni Ushnatvat Vacha Brahma Swarupa Avyadirittam Swarupa Mevatat. Yattu, that what we are talking about, Brahmanaha Vijnanam, that is the Jnapti Swarupam of Brahmana or the knowledge of Brahman. It is knowledge, nature of knowledge is Brahman, but here also we are talking about knowing of Brahman. That is the recent understanding that Vijnana, Brahmanaha Vijnanam is a relationship between the knowledge and Brahman. How is it happening? Tad, that is Savitri Prakashavat. It is inseparable like the sun and the sunlight, or Agni Ushnavat, the heat and the Agni or fire. Like these are two examples, like the sun and the sunlight, or the fire and the heat. Like these two, Brahma Swarupa Avyadirittam. From the very nature of Brahma, which is knowledge itself, Avyadirittam, it can never be separated out. Therefore, Swarupa Mevatat, that is the nature or the Swarupa means the very nature of, there is no other word for it, the very nature of Brahman or Atman. Natat Karanandaram Savyapesham. It is not depending upon any Karanandaram, Tat Karanandaram. There is nothing which can be instrumental for knowing that. So instrumental in knowing means when you cannot separate sunlight from sun. So knowing the sunlight is identical with the sun. Same way, the fire and the heat. The moment you know the heat, you know there is fire or a source of heat for it. Same way, when we experience the ephemeral knowledge or experiences in our day-to-day experience or momentary knowledge, what is happening, it is indicating that Atma, which is our Swarupa, our very nature of very nature, is the reason why we are having the experiences, thoughts, feelings, etc., etc. The moment Atma is not being used as Karanatvat, is not becoming a Karana for this purpose of experience happening in our mind and the body and the intellect and the mind body complex, that body becomes a dead body and there is no experience of whatsoever in the body. So it shows that the presence of the heat shows that there is a source of heat. Same way, the presence of experience in our body is very much indicative of the nature that there is the source of the knowledge or the experiencing entity which is because of which we are having the experiences, and we are mistaking that experiences as our nature. Therefore, when we think that when the Atma is not shining through the mind, intellect and the body complex, the body has no experiences. It becomes an inert jada or inert object, which very well shows that it was the Atma because of which everything is happening. Now, why is it so? Nitya Swarupatvat. It is Nitya and it is a Swarupa. Every moment or every experience, including the experience of deep sleep, Atma is present. So there is never a moment when I am the Atma. I means the Atma, not the ego. I am present, not present for experiencing. Even when I say I do not know anything in the deep sleep, my own experience of deep sleep I cannot deny. The experience of deep sleep, of not knowing anything of the deep sleep, or the absence of my feeling of body mind complex or the individuality of all of those things, cannot deny my presence or the Atma's presence in the individual when he is in deep sleep. The vyabhichara or the functions of the mind and the thought and the vritti is happening only in the Jagrat Swapna. Therefore, the experiences can be felt in the mind and we are feeling that is the reality. That is the reason why we think that the waking is a reality, because waking is able to deny the reality of the dream. But we are never able to deny the reality of the waking because our experiences are all depending upon our waking. Including to that extent that we are now including the deep sleep, which is an independent experience where there is no mind, that also as an experience of not knowing anything, even though we were knowing ourselves, our true nature, we are saying that we are not knowing anything because the waker doesn't want to accept that, but give a gap, that gap as a experience of not knowing anything. Even though we were knowing our own nature, that since it is not functioning through the mind, we are now putting the blame, saying that it is a state of ignorance. A lot of people call that in the Sushupti we have ignorance. The ignorance is of the waker which is being superimposed on the dreamer, on the deep sleeper, and to say that there is this thing. But we are the original Atma, even in waking, even in dream, even in deep sleep state. But we do not know our Atma Swarupa in the waking. We obviously do not know it in the dream. Even when we are in the Atma Swarupa of the nature of Atma in the deep sleep, the waker will deny that and putting an ignorance state that I knew nothing. That fact that I knew nothing is from the waker's point of view. But from the experience of the deep sleeper, it is an experience of its own, where there is no two, not dviyamasti, where there is no second one to experience. It is all by itself. It is experience of in pure experience. That is the way in which is said. Nitya Swarupatvad. Why it is saying? Sarva bhavanam cha tena avibhakta desha kalatvad. That is the most important word here. Sarva bhavanam, all experiences, cha, and tena avibhakta desha kalatvad. Avibhakta means you cannot separate it by desha kalatvad, by using the space and time in the atma bhava. That is sarva bhava. Now sarva bhavanam is the word which is now will become what is Sarvajna. How I am going to explain that. So sarva bhavanam chate avibhakta desha kalatvat. What happens is that all experiences what we are going through is conditioned by desha and kala. Desha means space, kala means time. So desha kalatvad, due to desha and kala, due to space and time, the experiences of the mind is divided. Whereas in the case of deep sleep or in the pure Brahman or Atman, there is no desha kala, and therefore it is avibhaktam, means inseparable, or it cannot be doing. Kala akashadi karanatvad niradishaya sukshmatvatcha. Kala akashadi karanatvad. This Atma or Brahman is the cause for Kala Akashadi. So, Tasmadva Atmana Akasha Sambhuda. From Atma, the Akasha came up. So, Akasha is the Karya, or the space is the effect, and Atma is the cause. This is in this mantra, in the Anuvak, what is being said. So, the Swarupa Atma is the cause for Kala Akashadi. For the Kala, Akasha means all those what is generated out of Atma. It is the primordial cause from where all this Desha and Kala is all come. Niradishaya Sukshmatvatva. Sukshma means minutest. It is so minute that even it is a cause for Akasha. It is so subtle than space. Only a subtle can produce a grosser thing that is known to our experience. Only subtle will generate a grosser one. Here, Akasha, which we know, the space we know, is the subtlemost thing which we know in our experience. But Niradishaya Sukshmatvat. Niradishaya means there is no variation in that minuteness of knowledge, nature of knowledge. And that is the cause, primordial cause, even for the space. Na tasya andadi vitneyam sukshmam vyavahitam vyaprakrishtam bhutam bhavat bhavishyat va asti. Na tasya asti. There is nothing available for that. What? Anyat vitneyam. To know separate from it. To know something separate from knowledge, there is nothing. Sukshmam, subtler than that. The knowledge of Atma Swarupa is the subtle most. That is why it is Mahat. Brahma or Atma is Mahat, is because it is the subtlest thing in the form of knowledge. The subtlest knowledge. Vyavahitam. It is not obstructed by anything because it is permeating through everything, so nothing can obstruct it. This knowledge is all-knowing or all-pervading. omni nature of that avyavahidam. Vipragashtam means it is far off. So whatever is far off or obstructing is within the realm of this knowledge. That is as far as the space is concerned. Now when it comes to time, kala, bhutam bhavat bhavishyat, past, present and future. There is nothing which is outside this. That is outside the past, present and future. The only thing which is outside or from which this future, present and past is appearing to have generated is the subtlest most thing. So it is included in it. So all permeating nature and all eternity, both in eternity as well as what you call expansion in nature, in time and space, is included in the Sukshmatvam of Atma. Therefore, Tasmat Sarvajnam Brahma. That is why it is called Sarvajnam. See, Sarvajnam is, there is the word Sarvajnam means Sarvan Janati. One who knows everything. So if Ishvara, let us say Ishvara or Brahma is the Sarvajna, which is knowing everything. See, there is a saying that Sarvam Bhutva Sarvam Janati. By becoming everything, it is knowing everything. That is one way of saying it. But here it is saying that how there is nothing outside it. And why it is not outside it? It is the Swarupatvat, Nitya Swarupatvat. Now suppose if we are assuming that there is Ishvara who knows everything, there the act of knowing is in the Ishvara of everything. So therefore what happens? Kartrutvam or the nature of subjectiveness is now superimposed on the Ishvara, and the moment subjectiveness comes, that becomes a karyatvam. Then becomes a cause and an effect. And if whenever the cause and effect comes, the time and the space comes into activity. In every time, in all places, even though we take everything in all time and all space is known to Ishvara, like the Dvaitis are talking about, there also the Anityatvam and Paratandryam will happen, because the Karagatvam of knowers, the subjective nature of Ishvara, will make it is dependency, Paratandryam, dependency on him and the objects for knowing. So he will become the subject, and everything else, everything, whatever they can be there in the world, will become the object. So the subject, object and knowing becomes an activity which is, and in time and space. So therefore that is not the Sarvajnatvam of Brahman what we are talking about. Here we are talking about a Sarvajnatvam because it cannot be separated out of from it. And therefore, there is no way in which we can say that there is anything other than it. So what happens is that this is why the Anandata of Satyam, Jnanam and Ananta, that Jnanam where Anandata is applied. So we are now going to a next phase of understanding this as interdependency of Anandata with Jnanam and Satyam. Nitya Swabhava, Jnana Swabhava and Ananda Swabhava. Anandam and Anandam all are same. So what, because Niradishayam, there is nothing which is, having a variation in that. So there is the uniqueness or the unity in that nature. So this is now being explained in the next line. What has said here in between? I'm taking two lines from the sub commentary of Anand. Nityam chet jnanam tarhi tatra kartrutva bhave kadam sarvajnatvam ityaha sarva bhavanam. So the same question of what is been asked, Anitya and Paratantriyam is now being discussed. Samvit avyavadhanam eva hi vishayasya siddhi. Samvit means jnanam. Avyavadhanam, inseparability itself is indeed he vishayasya siddhi. The object being comprehended in the knowledge is due to inseparability of the object from the knowledge itself. There is no two separate thing as the subject and the object. The subject, what we are not, if we are not looking at the activity of the mind, the subject Atma and the object, the Vastu, which we call it as the Nama Rupa objects, are embedded or included in the Atma itself. That is the reason why the mind is able to comprehend, and due to the not knowing the nature of Atma, those who are familiar with the vritti of the mind considers the vritti as knowledge, and then he bifurcates the knowing aspect as the subject and the known aspect as the object. In fact, avyavadhanam eva hi vishayasya siddhi. It is the presence of the object in the knowledge itself is the reason why the object is getting known. Sarvancha samvit swabhavena brahmana vyavahitam iti sarvajnam brahma upacharyeta ityartha. So he is referring to the sarvajnam. How? Sarvancha samvit swabhavena. Sarvam cha samvit swabhavena. Everything is of the nature of consciousness. Brahmanaha avyavahidam iti. It is not separable from Brahman or Atman. Therefore, Sarvajnam Brahma. Therefore, it is Brahma is Sarvajna. Iti upacharyata. Ityartaha. That is why it is being called the Sarvajna here. Otherwise, there is no Sarvajna in reality other than the very nature of knowledge in which everything is present. Being present in that knowledge, or the nature of knowledge being present in everything, that is the one which is to be called Sarvajna, not a person in the understanding which it is being discussed most of the time. Then they say that Mandravarnacha, to substantiate that, he is quoting a mantra from Taitareeya Upanishad 3:19. Apanipado javano grahita pasyatya chakshushya srunotyagarna savetti vedyam nacha tasya asti vetta tamahuragyam purusham mahantam. Now, the moment we hear this mantra, purusham mahantam, the word, will immediately make us feel that it's talking about Ishvara, or an entity as an instrument or as a person. But when we understand the meaning of the mantra, we will exactly know that what has been told till now is exactly what this mantra is also talking about. Apanipado javano grahita. Apanipada means without the hand or the legs. Javano grahita is moving and grasping. That means here is something which is able to move without any limbs and grasp everything without leg and without the hands. So it is able to move means it is all permeating nature. It is pervading everywhere. It doesn't need legs. At Javano Grahita, because it is embedded in it, everything is embedded in it, He is grasping everything without the hands. Pashyati achakshu. Without the eyes, it is seeing everything. Means it is inside it. Everything is inside it. Therefore, it doesn't have to have eyes to see them, because everything is in it. Tas shrunoti akarna. Without the ears, it is able to listen to everything. Here again, the same thing. It is inclusive of everything. Everything is inclusive in it. Therefore, it doesn't have to have the ears to listen to them. Saveti vedyam. Savetya vedyam. Veti vedyam. Vedyam means to be known. Veti means it is known. Known to be known. That is the way in which it is a Veti vedyam. It is to be known as knowable. Nacha asti asya veta. But there is nobody who knows it. It is to be known. It is known as knowable, but there is nobody who knows it. Tasmat, therefore, Purusham Mahandam Ahu Agryam. It is told that it is the supreme, greatest person. As we can conceive it, if you want to be conceiving at Brahman or Atman as a person, this is the way once you can conceive about it. This is showing that Sarvajnatvam, what we discussed earlier, is now not the way in which as a person who is knowing the mind and the objects of everything, what we are calling as the names and forms of everything. But here is a knowledge in which everything appears as consciousness, beings, not separate from that knowledge, but as extension of its own, within its own purview or with its own ambit. That is why we have to understand. Nahi vitnyadur vitnyade viparilopo vidyate avinashitvad. Nahi, not indeed. Vitnyatu, vitnyade, vitnyati, the knower's knowledge. Viparilopo na vidyate. There is not even iota of depreciation or incremental decrease for that knowledge. Vitnyadur vitnyati, viparilopo na vidyate. The reason is because avinashitvad, because it has no decay. So only a place where there is a decay, what we know about knowledge is decay. We know something now, we may forget about it. So the knowledge has gone through decay from our capacity. Here is a knowledge which has no decay at all. Therefore, the Vitnyati or the knowledge of Vitnyatu, of the knower who knows himself, or the one who is in the Swarupa of knowledge, there is no decay. Therefore, why is it so? Natut dvitiyamasti, because there is nothing other than that. Other than Brahman, there is nothing outside Brahman. To know it or it knowing by itself, it is not by forgetting itself at any point of time, because it is avikari and what is called is avinashi, without any vinasha. It doesn't have any in parts or any formation or anything, or it is not decaying. Therefore, it is only possible when there is no second one. The moment you have a second one, then one can know the other one can diminish the other one, because infinity doesn't become a reality, because one limits the other one. Therefore, it is not infinity. Here we are talking about a infinitude of both time and space, in which it is pure knowledge in that. And it is Anandada because there is no second one in it. And it is Satyam because there is no Vinasha for it. It is na vyabhicharati. It is not happening. Therefore, Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam are the Lakshyartha. One word alone cannot suffice the definition for Brahman or Atman. All the three has to mutually support, and we have to correlate between each other to come to that final meaning of the intended meaning, Lakshyartha of Brahman or Atman. Iti Shrutescha. Vijñātur Swarupa Avyatirikena Karanadini Karanadi Nimitta Anapekshatvad Brahmano Jnanaswarupo Api Nityatva Prasiddhi. Vijñātur Swarupa Avyatirikena Atirekat. Due to the Avyatireka or inseparability from the Vijñātra Swarupa. The knower, Vijñātra, here is the knower of Atma as a knower itself. Karanadi Nimitta Anapekshatvad. Because there is no Karanadi Nimitta Anapekshatvad. There is no instrument for him to know about himself. There is no mind needed for him to know himself. Because mind is a karana or an instrument for knowing is what we all know. But in Brahman or Atman, there is no dependency. Nimitta apeksha. Apeksha means dependency. Anapeksha means non-dependency. Nimitta is because the karanadi nimitta anapekshatvad. There is no dependency of any instrument for what? Vijñātur Swarupa. For the knower to know its own Swarupa. Therefore, Brahmana, Jnana Swarupa api, even if it is the Swarupa of Brahman, Nityatva Prasiddhi. That is why the word Satyam becomes important. Like Nityam, it is na vyabhicharati. That Satyam. There is Swarupa. That is the reason why one can never leave one Swarupa. The fire can never leave the Swarupa of heat, nor can sun leave the Swarupa of light from it. Same way, the Brahma can never leave the Jnana Swarupa of it. Ato naiva dartartastat akriya rupatvat. So there is no activity, kriya in the Brahman for knowing itself. And there is no dhatvartva, there is no dependency for the karakapeksha. Therefore, it is not the literal meaning of the jnana here. It is the intended meaning. Ataha evacha na jnana kartru. It is not a subject. Tasmad eva cha na jnana shabda vachyam api tad brahma. It is not a jnana shabda vachyam, means the literal meaning of the shabda jnana, which is from the root to know. To know means verbal root, and it is a vachyam means literal meaning, which has the dependency on the subject, knower, the object, the known, the instrument of knowing, mind. Like that, these dependencies that is not Brahma, Tad Brahma, not Tad Brahma. Tatapi, tada abhasa vachakena buddhir dharma visheshena jnana shabdena tad lakshyate natu uchyate. Tatapi, even then, tad abhasa vachakena, the apparent meaning, abhasa vachakena, apparent meaning of jnana,
buddhi dharma visheshena, due to the activity of buddhi means mind, by the adjectives applied to the activity of mind, is an apparent appearance of this knowledge. Jnana shabdena tal lakshate. Here, jnana shabda should be understood as it is an indicative to go to the Swarupa, not remain as the knowledge in the mind. Natu uchyate. It is to be understood that this is not being literally said that the activity of the mind is not the knowledge what we are indicating here. It is the Swarupa of Brahman or Atman. That is what is to be understood. Therefore, the Lakshana Vakya is to be understood from the word Jnana when it is being told, not the Jnana which is the vritti in the mind. That is the what is depending upon the kriya, the verbal root knowing, and therefore it has got anityatvam and paratantriyam. It is got in ephemerality and it is a dependency on the adjuncts like the subject, object, instrument, etc. Shabda pravritti hedu jatyadi dharma rahitatvad. Why? Shabda pravritti. The Shabda pravritti means the activity of the word. Is Jnanam has got an activity. For that, there will be a dependency of Hedu, Jati, Dharma, Jatyadi, Dharma. So, these are all the based on which any activity can be related or understood. The cause for knowing or what category of knowledge it is being told about the different categories of the objects, and dharma is a subtle in nature, gross in nature. Sometimes it is immediately known, sometimes it is not known immediately. All these are all the different reasons for Shabda Vachya Pravritti, for the activity of the Shabda called Jnana, to know. In the absence of that, this will indicate only the Lakshyartha, not to the Uchyartha or the Vakyartha. Therefore, we have to now understand that this explanation of Jnana word is equally applicable to other two words also. Tada Satya Shabdenapi. Even the Satya Shabda also is to be understood in the same way. Sarva Vishesha Pratyastam Mita Swarupatvad Brahmanaha Bahya Satta Samanya Vishena Satya Shabdena Lakshyate Satyam Brahma iti. Natu Satya Shabda Vachyam Brahma. Here also again the same thing, that is saying that Satya Vachyam Shabda. Satyam, we know that the Satyam, the word coming from the root sta. Sta means to be or to exist. So we know the word exist means existing, to be existing, existent, all will be existent. All these words, the exist verb, to be, exist, or the verb has got different applications depending upon the word we are using. That they are all called the Vachya Shabda or the literal meaning. But here, Satyam Brahma iti Lakshyate. That word where the existence or the existence which is Nitya, which is Satyam means Nityam also. Yadna vyabhicharati tat Satyam. So, the one which is not undergoing any change means permanently existing, eternity of existence. That eternity of existence with knowledge is now becoming a dual aspect of. That is why it is to be understood as a Lakshyartha, not you will never be able to understand any word of existence along with or the eternity with knowledge which is also expressed in the mind as a vikara or a vritti. Through the mental thing, we can never know anything that is permanently existing, and that knowledge what is in the mind is changing. Then that is not satyam. Therefore, evam satyadi shabdaha iteretara samnidhanat अन्योन्य नियम्य नियामकः सन्दः सत्यादि शब्द वाच्यात् निवर्तकः ब्रह्मणा लक्षणार्थश्च भवन्ति इति. This one statement is the conclusion how the word, the sentences or lakshyartha and vachyartha have to be concluded. Satyadi shabdaha. Satyadi shabda means Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam. All the three shabdaha. Iteretara samnidhanat. Interdependency on one another. The Satyam is not independent of Jnanam and Anandam. Jnanam is not independent of Satyam and Anandam. Anandam is not independent of Satyam and Jnanam. Therefore, iteretara sannidhanat, anyonya, interdependency, mutually, anyonya means mutually, niyamya niyamakaha, it becomes regulator and definers. It not only the one word in the conjunction of the other two words regulates and defines the meaning of the word. Otherwise, the tendency for that word to take the literal meaning will be most perfect. But that has to be refuted or denied. The potency for that has to be denied. Therefore, the three words, Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam, are to be understood as mutually dependent and one becoming the regulator and the definer for the other two. And same way, the other two also will become mutually depending and this thing. Therefore, Satyadi Shabda Vachyat Nivartakaha Brahmana. Vachyat Nivartakaha. Therefore, from the literal meaning of the Satyadi, it is now being freed. Nivartaka means free. From the literal meaning, these words are freed. Brahmanaha, of Brahman. Brahman is now being freed because of the three words are not to be taken as the literal meaning, but their intended meaning. Lakshanartha cha bhavanti. Therefore, it becomes appropriate to take the intended meaning of the three put together, not the independent, individual, literal meanings. Ataha siddham. Therefore, it is confirmed what? Yato vacho nivartande aprapya manasa saha. It comes in this in the Upanishad and Kena Upanishad. Yato vacho nivartande. Yataha means from where? Vachaha nivartande. Words is liberated. Nivartande means liberated. The words are liberated of their independent meaning. Aprapya manasa saha. The meaning which the mind can concise through the vrittis or the happenings in the mind. That can be the meaning of the word Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam. But that is not. Therefore, along with the mind and the words, when it is freed from the limitations of the mind and the literal meaning, then it becomes the Lakshyartha. Anirukte anilayane. In the Taitareeya Upanishad, the second chapter, in the same Valli, seventh Anuvaka, it will be mentioned. Anirukte. Anirukte means Nirukta means meaning. Anirukte means the one which is not defined. Anilayane. Nilaya means abode or a place. Anilayane. You cannot place it somewhere or you cannot have an independent meaning for it. It will appear that the meaning which the mind can conceive and place it as this. No, we will, anything which is known by the mind has a placeholder to put it. Yes, it is this. I know Atma. Yes, I am the Atma. Even when the teacher says I am the Atma, the mind will say that yes, you are the Atma. But what is you? We have already got an idea what we are. And we will place hold at Atma as what we think we are. Not to know, not to understand what is the lakshyartha of the word, tad tvamasi, when it is being told. So, anirukte, anilayanecha. So, iti avachyam, it is freeing from the literal meaning. Nilotpalavat vakyartatvam cha brahmana. Like the blue lotus, big lotus, smell, the good smell, which segregated that lotus from the rest of the lotus, or the tall boy with a hat and a blue shirt, red hat and a blue shirt, segregated out that from the rest of the things. Here, this Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam, when we apply to the Lakshyartha, we will know that it is not what we know through the words and the mind. It is the indicated meaning. The same applies for Satyam, Jnanam, Anandam or Satchidanandam. All these are Lakshyarthas. This is exactly what I wanted you all to understand and, have the grip of it in the first lecture itself what I gave you. Now this, having understood the definition of Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam has been completed. Now, and Atma also has been mentioned, Tasmat Etasmat Atmanaha has also been completed. That part of the Pratama Anuvaka has been completed. Now we will now go from there to the next parts of the Anuvaka from the next class onwards. So I'll stop here and we can take question and answer sessions. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavidyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavada.
Thank you very, very much, Binduji. Yeah, that was really perfect, and I'm very grateful that you went at the pace that you did, where you could go into detail. And I see what you're saying about the tie to the first class. And also, I think most everyone here today, we know each other, almost all of us, quite well over a long period of time. So I'll just refer back, the Nasadiya, there was some discussion most of us were in about some, what is metaphysics versus what is mystical. And, to really leave the mind, in my view, is to actually leave the metaphysics behind as well and go into that realm that Nasadiya did so deeply. And to what you brought up earlier today, Prakash, I think, maybe my use of the word nididhyasana is not quite right technically, only someone else can tell me that, but I know from my own path, I've used that word to mean where the seeker themselves goes into that mystical realm. And I felt like you were speaking of that in a way today, Bindaji, how to find the way into that space. I don't want to take too much time on that, although maybe I'll speak later. So anyway, today hand raising is on, a chat is open, and there's no better person than Bindaji himself to bring forward any discussion on things we're thinking about this. Only he can truly clarify what he means and what is trying to be conveyed. So I think it's a very special opportunity today to have the opportunity for whatever discussion makes sense for any of us. So please raise your hands if you'd like to come up, and Prakash will probably bring you up. And while we wait for that, Prakash, did you want to bring forward any topic?
It seems so paradoxical to speak when you are in the refined states of understanding, what Binduji referred to as Atmanaha. So when the Swarupa has already shifted that framework, there's no questions. But there can be clarifications, right? So, Binduji, the clarification I want to ask is, can you now contextualize why one calls this vichara Atma Vichara, just for the benefit of all of us? Thank
The Atma Vichara is being referred to as what we know as Atma or the self has been conditioned by the mind, and therefore we have a lot of mental imagination about our Atma, our own nature. It can be due to listening to lectures, reading books of your own, and listening to YouTubes and other things. But what happens in that process is that the mental picture what we create about Atma will never be known unless the limitation of mind and the words is put across in the right earnest. Everything else can be brought under the realm of words and the thoughts, or the words and imagination. But here is one talk when one subject, one object, vastu, our own nature, or the nature of Brahman. We may not be able to know Brahman because Brihatvad, it is the largest, and we do not know we are largest, or we do not know anything beyond our, conceived notions. But we have a notion about I am. That I amness has not been found by us at any point of time in the real way. So the real way to find out the Atma, what Upanishad is now taught us in this, particularly in this part, aspect, this particular part of the Upanishad, where we need to apply Sat Chit Ananda or Satyam Jnanam and Anantam in co-joint way. One limiting, at the same time defining the other two, and all the three where it is applicable. If that can be done as a vichara, that is the time when the mind will become no mind. That is why yato vacho nivartande aprapya manasa saha. That mind becomes no mind at that stage. And there, the enquiry will not be an enquiry. It is a stage or a state where the knowledge and the knower and the known becomes one. There is no separate, avyabhahitam, or, there is no separation of any, not Dvitiyamasti. There is no second one at that level. And that unique, unitary experience, we can call it as aparoksha only. Because anything else, what is coming in the mental level is paroksha from that point of view of the Atma. Everything is paroksha, is not from the Atma standpoint of view. So the vichara, where it will take you to the aparoksha nature or the immediate nature. Aparoksha means the most immediate. There is no instrument required in between. No, the knowledge, the knower and the knowledge. That is what we have to now understand as the Atma Vichara.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Prabhat.
Thank you, Binduji. Yeah.
Venkat, would you like to speak or be with us?
We'll have Srini go ahead, and I'm just driving in to home. In 5 minutes, I'll pick up, right after Srini.
Good. Srini, would you have anything you'd like to bring forward? You are muted, Srini. Okay.
Srini, are you there?
Yeah. Sorry, Binduji. I was little bit distracted. So yeah, I think it's with all what I was thinking from last session and this session is this the there is another aspect to it, right? Like one way is like when we say eto vacho nivartante and lack of objectification and this kind of stuff is more likely to lead into a space of little bit agnosticism kind of thing, right? Because it can be said that even if you're but of course the bhashya of course is not saying that, but just when we are discussing among ourselves, so that factor is always, I see that factor creeping in, because it becomes a easy escape that it cannot be put in words, whereas the actual fact is that the jna dhatvartha, the actual swarupa, and the that Brahman itself is not an anirvachaniya kind of thing. That experience is always there, and in a way it's the main vastu. So I think that there seems to be two sides of the coin to this, right, Binduji? One, we don't want to overly objectify it or imagine it, but on the other hand, it seems like a very tight rope that we are walking. One side, if we err one side, it will become objectification. If we err the other side, it might become a kind of agnosticism. So what do you think? That is what I wanted to ask.
No problem. That is exactly what you should answer. This question is very valid in the sense that when it is saying that there is no way it can be separated out from that, it is also giving us two indications. This is why what Lakshyartha, how do we go toward the Lakshyartha is important. It has denied the currently known knowledge of ours through the mind, whatever we are knowing through the mind, manasas, vacha, by the words and the mind, whatever is known, nivartante, from that it is being released. But at the same time, how it is getting released from the words and the mind, imagination, is more important than that sentence of agnostic way of thinking. Because here it is saying that not dvitiyamasti. There is nothing second to it, to know it, which means even what we know through the mind and as objects
cannot be outside the purview of the same object of Brahman. But when we are perceiving it as limited by time and space, we are bringing in a level of ignorance into our knowing aspect, limited by the shape of the object or the time and space of the object. These type of limitations we bring in due to our ignorance into the knowledge aspect, and therefore the knowledge is now conditioned by time, space and object. Desha kala vastu parichinna. We are bringing it, not the knowledge. It is all in knowledge. We are in the knowledge. The objects are in the knowledge. The knowing knowledge, everything is in that knowledge swarupa, because from the sunlight you cannot separate out the sunlight. Same way that this knowledge, what is being experienced in the mind, and by the object as an object of knowledge or known object, there is nothing outside knowledge which you can say is present. Because the moment it is present, it falls within the realm of the knowledge. So there is no way you can make anything outside the knowledge. At the same time, moment we bring in this Deshakala Vastu of limitation of the time, space and objectification, when we bring it, we are not looking at the knowledge in its purity, but conditioned by the time, space and the objectivity. This is the reason that time, space and objectivity is doing the onslaught on all the knowledge which we are having through the mind. We are forgetting it, we are remembering it, we are knowing things, we are not knowing things. All these things are because of the limits which we are bringing in due to ignorance of the association of time, space and objectification. When we remove the time, space and objectification, look at the same knowledge at the mind. When there is no object which is conditioning it, there is no time or space which is conditioning it, how do you know that knowledge of the mind as? You will know it as pure experience, anubhava. And that anubhava is not conditioned by the time and space or the object. The knowledge is no more, that experience is no more conditioned by the object, nor more conditioned by the space, nor more conditioned by the time. Experience in its entirety and purity is nothing but Atma. But that has to be understood that it has no limitation. That experience is getting limited the moment the second experience is being brought by the Desha Kala. That is the time when we are thinking that it is the first knowledge is now limited. No, that knowledge still remains there. But we use the mind to concentrate on something else, and we forget about that knowledge which we had in the previous event. But the previous event knowledge is being a part of the knowledge itself is always present, nityatva. That we are not able to appreciate or understand it in our limitation of association through mind. That is why when it is not saying that it is not knowable. Na veti asya vettam, that when it is said that it is knowable knowledge, but not known as the normal knowledge. When it is being told that it is affirming that it is knowable, but at the same time, not the way you know one which is conditioned by time, space and object. That is how we have to understand that, Srini.
Yeah. I think it again comes back to the shortcoming of the English word no, right? Now you are explaining also, it is clear because in Sanskrit there is no difference. The jna, it is not differentiating between knowing and experiencing. But in English we have a different word for knowing and different word for experiencing. I think, but and also I think, is it correct to say that when Upanishad is telling that Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, it is reinforcing the experiential aspect in us and negating the objectification or misunderstanding of the experience. So that is, I think, is the tightrope. I feel like one side is we should not leave the experiential aspect of that. I don't know what is the word. Also, it's difficult. But one side, we are not becoming completely agnostic, saying that we leave even the experience has to be left out, or even the word experience now it has different meanings in English, but there is something like they say that there is a jahat and ajahat or bhagat yaga. So I think that kind of concept comes to the fore, and when Upanishad is saying Satyam Jnano Anantam Brahma, it is certainly asking us to reinforce certain aspect of experience. And when Shankara is explaining the right way to understand that, he's helping us uh, remove the objectification part. Is that a right way to understand, Bindaji?
No, it is you have to understand that every knowledge, in reality, it is an experience. But what we call it as knowledge is the definition of the name and form and things like that. The name and form are not knowledge. They are descriptions. The descriptions, when it is being understood or known, it becomes a knowledge in the form of an experience. That knowing of the description is an experience. When you remember that, you may call it as a memory, etc. It's a different issue altogether. When you recall from memory also, you are having the experience of knowing the object again, even though the object may not be physically present within the realms of the sense organs. But the memory is an experience again. So all knowledge is indeed experience. What we call it as knowledge is not a bookish knowledge what we are talking. Even the million books can give all those things. But that is not becoming an experience unless that is becoming part and parcel of yours. Same way, this knowledge also will become part and parcel of yours only when you leave the word meanings and the descriptions of that objectification. The words which we are using is to define it, to bring it in the realm of time, space, and objectification. That has to be left out. Then only we can talk really about our, what you call, the experiential aspect of it.
Yeah. Thanks, Bindaji. Got it. Thank you.
Venkat, are you in a position to speak yet, or should we go to Ganesh? Oh, good, please. Please.
Sure. So I'm just extending Binoji, whatever being, because very important. So the Triputi Abhadita is the Gnanam we are talking about, because we talked about Desha Kala Vastu Abhadita. Is this a Triputi Abhadita? Question number one. Gnatru Gneya Gnanam. It's like living the truth or living the knowledge. It unconditioned knowledge. You use the word. Now, one question is that Triputi Abhadita? That's a question. I think I'll have a follow-up after this.
What are you looking at Triputi Abhadita? In your this thing, what is Triputi Abhadita?
Gnatru Gneya Gnanam, that in an experience, there is a three-way split. So there is no three-way split in the way we are now describing. Gnanam is pure experience. Only experiencing on, no experiencer, there is no Gnatru, there is no Gneya. It's just Gnanam. That is pure experience. Is that the way to put it? There is no Triputi.
No way. Good.
they can be done in two ways. If you remove the Triputi, then what are you talking about? There is no knowing at all, no knowledge at all. If you remove the Triputi, but when you are talking from the point of view of knowledge, without the Triputi, the knowledge itself becomes non-experiential. But if you consider it as non-separate from the knowledge, but the Triputi, what you call as the threesomeness of the knower, known, and the knowing, as nothing but knowledge itself, in its own purity, the names which we give the three are due to our bringing of the three aspects of time, space, and objectification. But if you do not have these three, time, space, and objectification, then the knower, known, and the knowing will not stand valid, and they will all merge together in one aspect of knowledge itself. The knower becomes knowledge, the knowing becomes knowledge, the object also is knowledge only. There is no separation from that, because the separation is being brought by Deshakala Vastu, time, space, and objectification. That separation cannot be applied. That I'm saying, that is we are bringing it because of our ignorance of the limitation of the mind. That is why the Triputi, even though you may call the Triputi being there, the Triputi will not stand independently without the knowledge as the reason why they have the Triputi nature.
Okay, Bendaji, I think this is fair enough. Can we put a word to it? Is that a yoga? Because in yoga, there is no yoga. There is no separation in yoga. So, the right way to put is Gnanam, alternate to Gnanam, is also yoga.
We are not talking about yoga here.
Because
see, the yoga and all aspects are all within the realms of the mind. Here we are talking about pure knowledge, Venkat. In that there is no yoga or anything. That is, before you come to understanding the Lakshyartha, whatever you do can be brought into the yoga level. But Kaivalyam, Kevalata Bhava, will come only when that jnana happens. Till then what you do is all yogas.
okay, I think the only context I was applying it is the Triputi discussion we are talking. The inseparability in the experience is as good as yoga. That is how I brought it. Okay, we will leave it for now.
Thank you. Really, thank you very much, Venkat. I think we owe a lot to people who are willing to ask questions, not just the things that they feel quite sure of, and some of you are very good at that. So thank you. We're going to go a little bit over. We want to make sure and give time to the people who are already on the speaker panel. So therefore, hand raising's closed. But to remind people that we have a general Advaita Q&A at 8:30 p.m. IST this Sunday here. So if you have more discussion on this Upanishad or anything else related to Advaita Vedanta that you'd like to speak with Bindaji about, we have that more open Q&A on Sunday. So with that, we'll let Ganesh take whatever time you'd like. Thank you for being here, Ganesh.
Thank God, Mr. Namaste, Binduji.
Namaste.
I had sent you a message in the chat box.
Yeah, I read that. That's why I pulled you up.
Yeah, today it is very, very flabbergasting experience. I was baffled, and after Srini and Venkat discussed, a little more clarity came, in the sense that the laksharthas of Satyajnanam Anantam Brahma are to be pondered over with the general meanings intact in the mind, and which cannot in any way help the mind. So whatever we know, it is not that, and it is only the bhava. What is that? Bhava rupa, that is jnapti. So that has to be pondered over consistently, and once it becomes an experiential aspect of those things, I mean, it could be realized at the end, and in no way, I mean, that might touch upon the aspects of nirantara nididhyasa state of mind, I feel. Otherwise, as you said, these are all the indicators to in that path of realization, I feel. Anyway, I am a little, I might be sounding a little foolish, I don't know. Really, today I'm in a little confused state, but after listening to other two speakers' discussion with you, a little more clarity has come. Finally, all words and experiences of the mind will take us nowhere in this total journey, spiritual journey, I feel. So it is better to adopt, rather to practice with these Mahavakyas, and just doing manana of those things might end up with the experiential aspect of it. That's what I could feel today. Am I right? You please shed some light on that.
You're right, Ganesh. We have to understand that the mind has a nature in which it can have knowledge or experience. But that is limited by the conditioning of time, space, and objectification. But there is the knowledge aspect in and through of all experiences. All experiences are knowing or knowledge. That there we do not separate between the knower and the known, which normally the mind does. Even when we are knowing, we do not give importance to the knowledge embedded in the knowing. We are more concerned about the description of the nama rupa or the experience aspect of it. Even if it is cold or heat, we are more on to the effect of hot and effect of cold rather than the experience of heat and cold. If you remember that pratibodha viditam matam, which I often keep on telling, that is it's also telling exactly the same. Every bodham, every experience is a knowledge enshrouded into time, space and causation by the mind. But the time, space and causation or the objectification is the nature of mind, not the nature of knowledge. And why knowledge is happening in the mind is because everything is knowledge or the Atma Swarupa in everything. The object, the subject, the knowing, everything is Atma Swarupa. But the instrument is defective. Instrument has to immediately condition it by time, space and objectification. Therefore, the knowledge which is being reflected in the mind also gets conditioned by the time, space and the objectification. Like the sunlight, however much purer the reflecting medium, mirror and everything is there, it has got the limitation of the size of the reflecting medium. It cannot reflect the entire sun. But it is sunlight after all. Even when it is reflecting sunlight only. Even when we are seeing our own reflection on a mirror,
we think we are seeing ourselves. No, we are seeing the light reflected from our body onto the mirror and reflected back to our eyes. So all we are seeing is light. But even when it is light, when it is being reflected and seen as light, only as light, we don't see the light, we see our face on the mirror. Because that is how the mind is made. So you have to understand that limitations of the mind is the reason why we are Manayeva Manushyanam Karanam Bandha Mokshayo. That statement, mind is the cause for both liberating us as well as clutching us into our limitations. So the only way is to see through the experiences, Pratibodha Vidita, which is exactly why. And how do you should know? You should validate that with Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam. Whatever knowledge which you identify or experience should be defined, should be definable with Satyam, Jnanam and Anandam all applicable together, not independently.
So most of the bhashyas are directed towards the perhaps misunderstanding of the mind to the real experience. It may imagine or it may logicize that whatever it is having is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So this is a checkpost. When mind becomes restless to comprehend that thing which is Satyam, Jnanam and Anantam simultaneously, and finally it gets into only the contemplation mode where the real knowledge would be, would be obtained in an experiential manner, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Binduji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ganesh.
But still I believe that I have to listen to it twice or thrice.
Please do that, and still if you have doubt, I'm always there.
Yeah.
Can we close, Atmisha?
We should close. So thank you, especially Binduji. I think today's class was a good example of what you were asking about at the beginning. It's good to take the time that we need so that we can all contemplate on this. I thought if we were going another hour, I'd want to come back to Prakash's question on, how does the term nididhyasana relate to something like today's class? So maybe we can do that on Sunday. For everybody, and anyone who listens to the replay, if you're new to this house, please join the house above so that you'll see notifications, or at least you'll see notifications if you come frequently. Clubhouse is kind of odd that way. And join us on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. IST, which is 10 a.m. on Sunday Eastern Time, so that we can have a general question and answer with Advaita questions and topics with Binduji. Again, it was a really good class today, Bindu. Prakash, would you like to add?
Just a heartfelt thank you to Binduji for everyone having come and attended this session. Like you said, Artemisia, I think listening to the replay might help a lot when you come back to the question and answer session. Yeah, thank you, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Atmisha. Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Venkat, Srini, and Ganesh. And thank you, everyone who have been there listening to this whole class. Please listen to this if replay. And if you have any questions, do ask it on Sunday or the following class if you want to. And we'll continue our Upanishad class on Wednesdays and Fridays. Sunday will be question and answer session. Thank you all. Good night. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Binduji. Good night.
Hari Om. Hari Om.